Okay, we'll get things underway. So, hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Next Generation Maritime Connectivity, specifically focusing on what the new Starlink plans and the new performance antenna really mean for the sort of maritime and offshore world. So, I'm Chris Shonett from Claris Networks, and I'll be taking you through some of the latest developments alongside my colleague Jonathan Bloomfield from who heads up our maritime sales here. And just we're going to take you through some of the latest developments from Starlink and how we're seeing those used in the real world effectively. So, like I said, thanks again for joining us. We've got a fairly informative 45 minutes and sort of the agenda, things we're going to cover are going to be, we're going to be breaking down the recent changes to Starlink's maritime service plans. That sort of happened in May, and there's been a transition period that's been happening there. Then we'll move on to look at the new performance antenna, which was announced 2 weeks ago, I believe, and the use cases surrounding that, some of the different features that have been brought to life with that antenna, and of course we'll talk a little bit about what we do here at Claris, and how we support customers. And there is a Q&A as well. Please feel free to drop any questions as they arise in the Q&A function in the meeting. What we'll do is we won't answer them as we go, but we've got some time at the end scheduled to be able to go through and answer any of those questions that you may have. So if something springs to mind, please pop it in there, and we'll try our best to answer. So before we get into the sort of detail and the technology, I just want to frame a little bit who Claris Networks are, and who we are in particularly in relation to Starlink. We've been working with them since the very early days of the authorized reseller program. So we were the 8th company globally to join the reseller program back in 2022. We're one of just 150 global authorized resellers. Now that number is increasing as new territories and markets open up, but we've been working with the team at Starlink for a good couple of years now, and we're currently ranked and proud to be ranked 5th in the world for total number of deployments, with our customer base being wide and varied, whether that's offshore energy, commercial shipping, ferries, but also remote industrial operations, and some of the more enterprise side of things that we do as well. So this isn't just about, selling the Starlink hardware. We've invested over 2 years into that API integration, the support tooling, and delivered a managed solution that fits maritime, offshore, enterprise as well. And we're continuing to invest heavily in in that support tooling and delivering a managed Starlink solution for our customers. And obviously you may have heard of the rail announcement and the work that we're doing there as well. So we're going to continue investing in the services we provide to our customers, with the focus being around Starlink as well. And sort of giving a quick snapshot of Claris Network specifically and where we stand today. We currently serve customers across all 7 continents, from the North Sea to Antarctica, and from West Africa to Western Australia. The team here has grown pretty rapidly, and we're now at 73 specialists across sales, engineering, support, and development. We've definitely invested heavily in the support and development side of things, and we'll continue to invest in those areas. And we're on track to exceed 45 million in annual revenue for 2025. And a lot of that is being driven by strong momentum in maritime energy, offshore energy, and remote connectivity sectors. So this growth really reflects not just demand for Starlink, but the need for a managed partner who can deliver it with the reliability, integration, and proactive support that we that we do here at Claris. So now we're going to move on to the latest Starlink Maritime service plans, or global priority plans as they're referred to. What's changed recently, what's available now, and a little bit of a overview of some questions to maybe ask when choosing the right plan for your operations. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Jonathan now, who heads up Maritime Sales. Over to you, Jonathan.
Thanks, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jonathan, Head of Maritime Sales for Claris Networks Group. To start, I'll just jog your memory on the previous service structure and sort of highlight how the offering has improved over time and the benefits around the latest changes. It's fair to say that the Starlink services previously offered a bit of a lack of flexibility in relation to the data packages. So really there were three core packages. Everyone's obviously familiar with these: the 50 gigabyte, the 1 terabyte, and the 5 terabyte packages. There were some higher ones available as well, but again, the sort of really big jumps between those packages. This normally resulted in sort of two scenarios. So firstly, customers often undersubscribed due to that large jump. So sometimes people would opt for a lower data amount than they actually need, and then take the risk with the higher cost per gigabyte of the outer allowance and the overage. In some scenarios, some customers also, we found, were adding extensive restrictions on the local network. This pretty much negating the benefits that Starlink provides and the high bandwidth speeds on board. The second scenario really was the oversubscribing of data, and then underutilizing on a regular basis. Obviously, this pretty much results in a cost per gigabyte being a lot higher due to that unutilized data. All of that sort of accumulates in an end result where this scenario where it's very difficult to manage data packages appropriately from month to month. In addition, previously, there was no SLA. Starlink was the best effort service, which, although as everyone has experienced, the service has worked very well. Having that added peace of mind is reassuring, particularly as the service has become more critical to so many people's operations. It's taken some time to get to this spot. If we go back to 2020, when the original beta rollout was touted as better than nothing connectivity. As we see from the thousands of terminals we have active today, the service has performed impeccably for several years now. However, it's still been a case that until now there's been no SLA provided for the service. So if we just skip to the next slide, please, Chris. So what's new with the new plans? To start with, the way we talk about the services has changed. It's now simplified. The plans are divided into local priority data or global priority data. The simplest way to differentiate between them is local priority. It's basically anything on land. So that includes land mobility as well. And global priority is essentially used for maritime and ocean use. Is probably the best way to look at that. They've also changed the way that the plans are made up a bit. So there's two core aspects to those plans. So the terminal access charge is the first point to mention, which is charged per subscription line. You can have a maximum of 2 terminals per subscription line on the global priority data plans. And that's just a fixed monthly cost, allowing the terminals to join the network. The second aspect is, of course, the data, which is provided now in data blocks, which can subsequently be used to build your required data package each month. 50 gigabyte or 500 gigabyte blocks are available. It's worth noting that the 50 gigabyte blocks of data are twice the price of the 500 gigabyte blocks. So this means that the maximum benefit that can be realized using a 50 gigabyte block is 200 gigabytes before it makes more sense to opt for an additional 500 gigabytes on your monthly data package. For example, you can now have a 2.5 terabyte monthly data package, whereas before you had that sort of large jump between the two, the 1 and the 5. Flexibility this provides includes the ability to have almost any amount of priority data on a monthly basis, with the ability to fine-tune based on your historical usage. This is something that we provide through our portal, showing you the actual utilization against contracted data over 12 months. There will be scenarios where some people might still find they're a bit short. Maybe they've got an asset or a vessel where there's been extensive usage for various reasons. Maybe client on board issues more. There could be any number of reasons. But there's 3 core options. Option 1 would be is to opt into additional priority data. This aspect has changed slightly as well. So in the past, it was per gigabyte with the old packages. Now it's done slightly differently in that you can add a 50 gigabyte block. So automatically you exhaust your priority data, and if you opted in, an extra 50 gigabyte block, and if that's then exhausted, another one is added, and so on and so forth. Option 2 also has another slight change of the service. So if you remain opted out of priority data and exhausted your package, the service would move to an unlimited throttled service regardless of location. That throttled service provides 1 megabit per second down and 512 kilobits per second upload per antenna. It's worth knowing that when I say the throttled services, regardless of location, I obviously mean licensed areas, which includes all oceans apart from those territorial waters of unlicensed countries that won't get that service. Basically, it would cut off completely. Option 3 offers even more flexibility, really. So you have the ability to manually add 50 gigabyte data blocks to the service line. And that would last until the end of the month. So this offers control by being able to add limitations on the additional monthly costs. So you could add, for example, 200 gigabytes in 450 gigabyte blocks, and then after that point, the service would cut off. So you've got the flexibility to add data mid-month, effectively using those blocks. From a Klaus's point of view, all of our services are provided month to month, so you can upgrade and downgrade as requirements change. Klaus networks can also offer pooled data. So this provides the ability to share data across multiple assets, resulting in added efficiency and cost saving. Using in-depth analysis, we can determine expected data usage and arrange either a monthly pool of data or a pool of data to use over a longer time period. Moving on, in line with the changes to the service mentioned thus far, the service also includes an SLA, which is 99.9% for uptime and availability. This was measured over 60-second timeframes. To sort of summarize everything I've gone through there, all of these features bring benefits and ultimately provide organizations with the tools to more efficiently run and manage the data for their operations. The key to maximizing the new levels of flexibility on offer is to utilize advanced data management and reporting features, which we believe we can provide through our portal and our services. The Klaus network management software has been purposely built for Starlink from the ground up. So this offers an industry-leading robust console where you can monitor, control, and scale connected assets all from a single pane of glass. We want to go beyond the claim of customers avoiding overage fees by providing tangible statistics and controls that can help customers accurately predict usage and allow you to make the necessary changes and choices ahead of time. As the Starlink technology has matured, so have organizations' reliance on it. Using our experience of one of the earliest providers of Starlink and our commitment to the service, we're well placed to advise on maximizing the service as it evolves and do releases come in the future as well. I'll pass back over to to Chris so he can talk about some shiny new hardware with you.
Thanks very much, Jonathan. That's a great overview there. And I think, like, just on the point of the portal and the management side of things, I think there's lots of dashboards out there which give you a very good overview of what's happening with your service right now. But our drive is really to go much beyond that and provide it as a whole management portal for every aspect of the service that you need to understand. So that's developed in-house. We've got our own software developers who are continuously working on that platform, pulling it forward. It's worth noting as well, with the change in plans, we've also seen a complete restructure of the API. So there's been a lot of work going on to bring that portal up to date, and we're excited for the next release that's going to be coming out at the end of the month, which is going to give some further capability to our customers beyond what they have today. So now moving on, as Jonathan mentioned, to the hardware, and really the new performance antenna is an evolution of the flat high performance. So this was the unit that was brought out in the original Maritime unit, and it's been this latest edition has been built specifically for those demanding maritime, offshore, harsh environments. And the hardware now sort of really steps up, whether it's high seas, cold climates, high vibration platforms. This is going to be the kit that you want, and it's also about simplifying the whole portfolio that Starlink have as well. So as we look into a bit more detail, we sort of break the new hardware features into 4 key pillars. The first one being fast. Now, the antenna is already going to be able to deliver current network speeds, 220, 300 megabits per second in some places. And the roadmap is to get to 1 gigabits per second and beyond. Okay, now that roadmap is obviously dependent on the Starlink constellation being upgraded as well. But this antenna, this unit, is ready for gigabit speeds once the constellation is ready to deliver that for customers as well. So we're expecting that to happen and be available in 2026. There's obviously a few gateways to go through prior to that being achieved, but this hardware is ready to go and ready to provide those speeds for customers in the very near future. And next one being robust. Now, obviously, the flat high performance units that are out there as well, many of them have been working now for 2 years and beyond. And I sort of remember initially when the first unit came out, I was actually working at a different antenna manufacturer, and we looked at it and went, there's no way that's lasting. But it has done, and it's performed very well. We see relatively few failures of antennas themselves. We've seen a few issues around PSUs, but nothing on a scale that has really warranted any cause for concern. So I think this next unit is even more robust. One of the big changes is the housing that the antenna and electronics sits in. That's now in die-cast aluminium housing, and actually the casing that's made in-house in the Starlink facility, and they also use this material for a lot of the rockets as well. So in terms of robustness, I think that that's a good testing ground for how well the material can hold up. The other bit that's really, and we'll talk a little bit more detail about this, that's really improved the robustness. Everyone will have fed back about the cable connectors on the Starlink flat high performance antenna. I think that's part of every conversation that's ever been had when talking particularly about deploying it in a maritime environment. The cable and connectors have been significantly upgraded, and that's resulted in an upgraded IP rating. So IP68 without the cable connected, and then IP69K with the cable connected. In terms of operational ranges and numbers, there's the data sheets that we'll sort of get into there as well. The next piece, flexible, and really we're talking about the power supply unit here. So that's been significantly upgraded. It's a completely new PSU that supports both AC and DC power. So that flexibility for installation, you haven't got to necessarily put any real heavy work around an installation solution. You've got both options there out the box. And I think the last point is really, this is the premium antenna when it comes to working in enterprise grade environments, whether that's mobility, whether that's on land. There's improved, a lot of work has gone into improving the durability, and then also having it ready for those, that future speed. There's full hardware spec sheets available. But I guess some of the headline sort of things there are the field of view is 140 degrees. So these high performance units are looking for 5 satellites at any one time, as opposed to the standard units that only look for 3. So that is how you can engage the higher performance, because of that field of view. It's scanning for 5 satellites and can connect to up to 5 satellites at any one time as well, simultaneously, to provide that service. Part of the evolution with the network will be that it can also transmit and receive with 2 beams at any one time, rather than just having a connection and switching between the 2. So that's a new part of the antenna there as well. As I mentioned, the environmental rating, IP68 and then IP69, and the die-cast aluminium backing. Some other things there's 3-year warranty now with the new units, as opposed to the original 12 months warranty. So enhanced warranty. And in terms of the field survivability, there have been 10-year field survivability tests actually undertaken on these units. And that, again, that's undertaken in-house in the Starlink facility in Bastrop, where they actually process and go through the cycling of these units to make sure that they can put that 10-year field survivability on there as well. Mounting options, the flat high performance previously came only with a wedge mount, and then there were different mounting options available. The new performance unit, because it's been designed for different applications across the enterprise world, and as the use cases have come in terms of where Starlink can be used and what it's being used for, whether that's unmanned vessels, it could be different offshore platforms, it could be multiple units across vessels and platforms. The designs of the mounts have been tweaked slightly to serve some of those. So there's a wedge mount, standard wedge mount available, and there's also a flat mount as well. So this unit can be mounted flat on top of, say, a vehicle or an unmanned vessel, something like that. There's options there. Worth noting that the antenna pattern is exactly the same as the previous unit as well. So no need to change any existing mounts if you're swapping out units. Okay, and then moving on to the performance antenna, and I mentioned that power supply is new and advanced. So it operates both AC and DC power, so 100 to 240 volts AC and 12 volts, 56 volts DC. The power draw is on average 75 to 100 watts. So that's come down slightly from the older unit, the previous unit, which was at the high end. It was drawing about 100 watts. Obviously, things like snow melt capability will vary that power draw there as well. But there's some flexibility there in terms of how you can power the unit, and also add resilience as well. You can have it plugged into AC, but you could also have a battery sat there in the DC side of things to be able to run that unit should the power go down, the source power go down. So there's some flexibility there as well. It's rack mountable, so you'll notice the 2 on the outer edge of the unit that you can see in the image here. They're basically sort of pull pins, and the PSU comes out of that casing that can be then mounted onto in a rack, and easily sort of tidied away from that perspective. There's 2 ports. One is for the antenna cable in, and then there is a PoE output port there as well. And we're awaiting for clarification on exactly what, but there's going to be some advanced API diagnostics around this PSU that are going to be released as the antennas start to go out. But they're already built into the PSU, and there's some additional things in the cable as well, which offer some nice features, but some additional support tools, support functions. So as you deploy these into remote areas, you can actually really get a good understanding of what's going on, should there be any issues, any problems. Okay, I think one of the other pieces of feedback that Starlink received, I know we certainly talked about this a lot in the early deployments, was regarding the cable. Now, there's nothing worse than having to route a cable and put it through a gland, but you can't get it through the gland because the connector is too big. And subsequently, you have to cut the cable and splice the cable, but that then voids the warranty, which was the previous stance on Starlink. Now, that's no longer the case. There is a field termination kit, so cables can be cut and spliced to length as required without voiding any warranty on the units. It supports up to 50-meter cable runs. 50-meter plus can be achieved, but there will be a loss in the snow melt function if you go over that, just because of the power draw as well. And it's worth noting as well, with the new connector, any existing cables installed can be reused and re-terminated with the new connector. So it's only a new connector on the antenna end. And there's also water detection built in within those connectors. It's a much more robust solution there as well. So further evolution of the hardware there in terms of what's can be done and what's available. Okay, moving on. Next bit. What's the availability? When can we get hold of them? We've got 2 units actually out testing right now. We've got them installed on vessels that are operating in the North Sea. So yeah, that's beta testing effectively. So units are about to go into production. There's a 3 to 4 week lead time in the US, Europe, expecting Q3. Now that is just around the corner, 2 weeks away. So yeah, as with a lot of these things, the dates can slide around as production gets ramped up. But I would say July is a good time to be able that we'll be getting our hands on those. So we've placed some orders for these as well. As soon as we have stock and availability, we'll be letting our customers know that those units are in and ready to go. Okay. So that's the Starlink side of things. That's the changes in the service plans and the new antenna. I'm now going to talk a little bit about what Claris do and how we add value. It's not just about supplying hardware and service. We're really about designing the right solution, testing it, and building it for long-term success. As a recent example, one of the ways we've been able to stay ahead is through our direct collaboration with Starlink and SpaceX, and especially when it comes to new services. There's services like the high throughput service and plans. Now, we were one of the first people to test this globally, and we really approached this by working closely with the SpaceX engineers to deploy the new high throughput plan at our demo center in Bathgate, and then on a live vessel as well. And together we sort of tested this high throughput service and looking at peak throughput under real load, latency and jitter, failover and multi-terminal load balancing and bonding using various different bonding devices and SD-WAN devices as well. So you can see the results here from 3 terminals, 5 terminals and 6 terminals as well. And it's worth mentioning here as well that this high throughput service is you achieve a higher tier on the network with the high throughput service. A example being, if you're at Monaco watching the Grand Prix a few weeks ago, everyone who is on global mobility plans will all has the same access or priority on the Starlink network at that point. So everyone's fighting for bandwidth. You know, the cruise ship that comes in as well, there's only a limited amount of capacity. You know, these things are finite. So there's going to be there will be the end result is a congested service. Put the high throughput service in, you are going to be a level above in terms of priority on that network. And effectively, it depends how many Starlink antennas you have, but you can operate with 2 to 20, and you can bond these all the way through. And you can see, even with just six terminals, we're achieving 1.3 gigabits per second down, 400 megabits per second up. And we're seeing real reduction in latency and packet loss, jitter as well, because they're on that higher priority service on the network as well on that side. So if you do want to find out more about that, please do get in touch with us, and happy to go through the real world testing that we've done. We tested it with multiple SD-WAN devices and achieved different and sort of shared all those results there as well. And thanks to this collaboration, we can now confidently come to our customers and say they're proven, it's optimized, and it's ready for these difficult environments that we're working with. So we don't just sell Starlink, we also work closely with the suppliers and our customers to really help define the different ways that Starlink services can be used as well. And of course, yes, Starlink is a transport layer, but also there's the value that sits around that as well. It delivers the raw bandwidth, delivers the global coverage, and the performance is there. But we're also sort of looking at the value of what sits around that, the full network layer, whether that's SD-WAN, as I mentioned, bonding, bonding with 4G, 5G, sure Wi-Fi, even legacy VSAT in some cases, to create a seamless failover path and intelligent routing, just meaning that your applications get the right bandwidth at the right time, no matter what connection is being used as well. Private 5G and LTE for large-scale offshore, nearshore operations, wind farms, remote construction. We build private cellular networks, giving you full control, low latency, and zero reliance on any public infrastructure. This is often backhauled using Starlink services as well. And it, with the low latency that Starlink offers, that's a perfect combination there as well. Kinetic mesh wireless, which is large, scalable industrial wireless services. So for large sites where traditional Wi-Fi may fail, we deploy kinetic mesh networks where every node is both a transmitter and a receiver. Perfect for moving assets, rugged terrain, or autonomous vessels, port side operations, these sort of environments there as well. And finally, one of the key points with Starlink, I think, particularly with new plans as well, is this access management and being able to offer secure user access control, whether that is crew versus corporate segregation, quotas, usage alerts, throttling, or captive portals, authentication tools, keeping that bandwidth and that capacity protected and prioritized, and also fully auditable as well. So there's some of the additional services that we offer there. And of course, all backed up as part of the total connectivity architecture that is dedicated 24/7 support through our service management center, the client portal that I sort of touched on there, and really, as I mentioned, this is beyond a dashboard, and we're going to keep developing this. We're going to keep pushing it forward, allowing you to pull reports, manage user permissions, make real changes to your services, activate, suspend, access billing and contracts, open or escalate support tickets, and the dashboard. So dashboards are a window, but the portal is really the area where you can do absolutely everything associated with that service. We're not there today, but we're going to be there in the very near future. And of course, full installation, onboarding, and global support there. So they're the sort of additional pieces that we do. Okay, a lot of information, I know, but really now time to open the floor. Drop your questions in the chat, or feel free to unmute if you want to ask the question live. Okay. All right, we've got a few questions in here. So is that proposed 1 gigabits per second still in KU band at the remote, or using KA band and or E? Good question. It's one that I don't have the answer to right now in terms of how the proposed 1 gigabit per second link is going to be available. I mean, we have to assume from licensing and regulatory side of things that they have the same spectrum available. But you know, that's probably one that we need to do a bit more research on before I answer that. So we'll get back to you on that and what that answer is. Okay, I may have missed it, but with the new dish and the proposed 1 gigabit per second connection, could you clarify what the expected upload speed will be? So again, the good question. The expected, everyone always talks about download, but forgets the upload side of things. I think there's not been too much information released around what that upload speed will be. I think what we've seen in terms of bonding units and getting to that 400 megabits per second, that's where we're looking to be achieving. That's what we'll be looking to, the service will be looking to achieve into 2026. So I think we can assume double the current speeds as available today on the current unit. So if you double the upload, double the download, that will be where the Starlink service will fit. Again, more information is going to come, you know, probably quite quickly regarding what that new service looks like. As I mentioned, it's all about getting the right satellites in place as well. So there's some launches to do, and also getting the Starship rocket working. That's probably a big part of the success of being able to offer gigabits per second speeds. So I'm sure that's going to happen very soon. Starlink mobile community gateway available on ships. I read Starlink testing taking the land, large terminal, and placing them on ships. That is a good question, and that is something that has happened. It's happened on a 1 or 2 cruise vessels. Now, the antennas associated with a community gateway are pretty large, sizable, almost back to a VSAT dome, and they were needing 4 to 6 of those to be able to offer consistent, reliable service. And actually, this is where the high throughput service that I mentioned stems from. Is actually, instead of putting community gateways on there and offering that gigabit speeds there, can the gigabit speeds be achieved by bonding the current Starlink antennas, as I mentioned, 2 to 20 antennas that can then be put into bonded together, put on a higher priority on the network? Does that achieve the same outcome as the community gateway at a fraction of the cost and a fraction of the outlay on the hardware? And you know, the testing has shown that yes, that ultimately bridges that gap between the capacity that's available today just using a single Starlink, even in just a bonded scenario, bonding units together. The high throughput service adds that extra layer and can take you towards that gigabit speed. Hopefully that does answer that question there. And like I said, happy to take any more away. Okay. Will the pricing models change to accommodate the higher speeds coming with these new antennas and offer unlimited packages, or move from data packages again like other players in the market? Okay, so we're looking at the ability to offer unlimited packages. Now, will pricing models change again with Starlink? That is something that your guess is as good as mine. A little bit. No, I think having just gone through a change, that we won't see anything in the near future. Data pools, I think there's going to be an evolution of the data pool service as well. And again, this is just personal opinion. I don't know that, but from the conversations that we have around data pools, how they operate and how they work, they're definitely of value to customers today. But I think we can expect to see some changes on that front. The standard price models change. I don't think that's going to be happening, particularly, certainly not in the next 12 months, I would say. Okay. Any other questions at all? Got one in the chat. One in here. I don't have the option to unmute. That'd be why there's no live questions. Sorry. Okay. Okay, so just give time for any other questions that may spring to mind. If not, thanks very much for joining. We'll sort of wrap things up. Both myself, Jonathan, open for any questions that you may have. Our email addresses are there. Please do get in touch, and feel free to ask away. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. And yeah, if you like any sort of one-to-one sessions, ask a bit more detail, discuss specifics, then please do get in touch, and we'll be happy to arrange that. We're going to send out the slides and the recording after the session as well. So yeah, thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your days wherever you are. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.